Top 5 things to think about before you start into a process. And so this week is a really important week for information for any business owner and their advisors, accountants, lawyers, etc., as they start to go down that journey and thinking about a transition. So if you're new to the channel, hit the connect, hit the subscribe, put a thumbs up, leave a comment, because I think that helps other business owners to understand some of the nuances and the challenges that they face when they're planning for a transition. So without further ado, here are my top 5 things to think about or to understand before you start down the road of a transition, a business transition. Number 1, it's going to be much harder than you think. And this comes from experience, lots of experience with business owners that think they are fully prepared for a transaction. They think it's not going to be that hard. They're well organized. They've got a strong management team. They've got all those things going on, and it shouldn't be that hard. Well, over the last 25 years, it hasn't gotten any easier to sell a business. In fact, it's gotten harder. Due diligence has become much more intense, particularly with private equity investors that are, they're representing other people's money. So they want to make sure they're covering themselves and asking every possible question they could answer. Or they could ask. So due diligence and the process has become much more difficult. So it is going to be harder than you think. Number 2, and it's kind of related to number 1, it's going to take longer. There's a process. There's a process in collecting information, building an information package of some sort, disseminating that amongst a group of buyers, collecting offers, negotiating on various offers, going through due diligence, going through legal, and finally getting to a close or a transaction completion. Even then, you may not get fully paid out. Particularly these days, there's more challenges in getting fully paid when there's uncertainty in the market. So it's going to take longer than you think. Number 3, really understand the amount of cash that you're going to end up with at the very end of the transaction. Because people quite often, business owners, don't think of all the expenses and the structures of transactions and how that's going to affect the cash that they're going to receive at the end of a transaction. So deducting debt that's in the business, deducting taxes. We all unfortunately have to pay taxes, especially if you've had a large capital gains. Deduct accounting, legal, and investment banking or business brokerage fees. And deduct the escrows and the holdbacks that are going to be, paid post-closing, because you want to know what you're going to get at closing. And so do the math, work with professionals to find, to figure out what that is. And if it's not enough, put some plans in place to improve the outcomes. And that's what I talk about in my other videos, or a lot of my other videos, is how to improve those outcomes. But understand how transactions are structured, how the cash flows and the cash proceeds are accounted for at the end of the day. Number 4, hire professionals. Hire an investment banker or a business broker. And I know that sounds self-serving, but most of you are going to be in markets that are outside of my local market. And it goes without saying you should have professionals on your side. This is a big transaction, whether it's even if it's a small company, it's probably a sizable transaction. It's far more complicated, as I said from the outset, than selling a house or selling real estate of any sort. There's so many things that are going on. The markets are changing. The terms are changing. It's important to have professionals. And as important as investment banker or business broker is, having a mergers and acquisition counsel, legal counsel on your side, in my mind, is one of the most critical things you can have. Because you may only sell a business once or twice in your life. Most of our clients only sell their business once and they retire, they go on to other things. So, understand that buyers, more often than not, have acquired multiple companies over their lifespan. And so they are far more experienced. Their lawyers are going to be far more experienced. And if you don't have proper M&A counsel on your side, you're fighting a much tougher battle. And 5, the 5th thing to think about is, once you've signed an offer, the power shifts to the buyer. So please don't sign an offer until you've had advice. Talk to your lawyer, talk to your accountant, talk to an advisor, and understand what's in the offer and what it means to getting a transaction done. Because the minute you've signed that offer, the power shifts to the buyer. So anything they find in due diligence that may be less flattering can be used against you in terms of pricing and terms. And yes, you could fight back on that, but you want to know what you're signing. You want to know what the process is going to look like and be fully prepared before you go down that path. So those are my 5 things to be most aware of or most prepared for as you start down the transition path. Number 1, it's going to be much harder than you think. So be extra prepared, both physically in terms of the documents and being organized, but also emotionally, that this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. Number 2, it's going to take longer than you thought. There is a process. There's due diligence, there's legal, there's backs and forths that, and a lot of transactions just stop for a period of time and then they get going again. So be prepared for a longer time frame than you might expect. Really understand how the cash in genes or the proceeds is calculated in a transaction. Don't be surprised by the end result at the final weeks where you're organizing and understanding what cash is actually going to come to you, and it's going to be shorter than you think. Be prepared. Understand that right up front. Hire professionals, investment bankers, M&A legal counsel. Use the best accountants you've got at the firm that you work with to really organize your affairs as you go through the process. And number 5, recognize that once you've signed an offer, the power is going to shift to the buyer. So be fully prepared, really understand what you're signing before you go down that road so that you can stay in the driver's seat as long as possible. So those are my 5 top things to think about before you get into a transaction. Please, if you have some more, put them under down below. I'm sure other people, myself included, we'd love to hear your thoughts. And I hope that you'll connect and share, and I'll see you next Thursday. Thanks.